Simone has a massive decision to make, and Wilhelm's place in the royal court is threatened. Hello, entertainment enthusiasts. This is Ray, and this is the Fandom Realm. And today, I'm going to be reviewing Season 2, Episode 5 of Young Royals. Now, just as always, this is a spoiler recap and review, so just be warned. Now, to start episode number 5. In this episode, we're going to start out by seeing that both Simone and Wilhelm are feeling the effects of the kiss that they shared the night before and hearing the song that Simone sang. And we see Simone in his bedroom sitting on the bed with Wilhelm's shirt. We also are going to see Wilhelm thinking about the same moment while he's taking a shower. And so it's going to be evident that that love is still there from both sides. Of course, Wilhelm has been sort of pursuing this the whole time, with Simone trying to get over Wilhelm. We're going to flash to a breakfast scene with the guys who are boarding at the school, and both Wilhelm and August are going to get text from the royal court at the same time from Jan Olaf. And of course, he is telling Wilhelm to remind him there's a fitting by the tailor. Jan Olaf is telling August that he's attached the speech that he needs to practice. Of course, the other big thing that happens here at the breakfast table is you're going to see Wilhelm puts together a sandwich to take to Simone. And also, that's reminiscent of what happened in the first season. And then also, it becomes apparent that something is going on with Alexander, because he gets up and leaves the table when Wilhelm asks him what is going on. Moving on, we're going to see a scene with Sarah. She's coming out of the stables, bringing the horse down to come outside, and Simone is coming there looking for her. And we're going to have a touching sort of little scene between Sarah and Simone, where Simone is coming clean with her about kissing Wilhelm, and he's starting to feel a little guilty because he feels like he might be cheating on Marcus, and that he's stupid, and he can't really believe he's doing this, and it's Wilhelm. And of course, Sarah, who now understands because she's in a relationship sort of with August, and she basically tells Simone that in the end, you can't really choose who you fall in love with, and sometimes it's not the smartest thing. And I thought this was a very interesting little scene between the two of them, brother and sister, and it was very touching. Now, as Sarah and Simone head off to class, we basically find ourselves in a situation where Simone is getting a text from Marcus telling him that he was disappointed that Simone wasn't able to come over last night after the ball, and that hopefully they could do it soon. We're skipped to a scene with all the girls, and the girls are learning etiquette for the jubilee that's coming up, and the headmistress or the house mistress is going over details about how they stand, how they should address the queen, all those type things. And Sarah is sort of learning. She is asking questions, and she's sort of showing that she's not in these circles. Of course, the Jubilee preparations continue as we see a scene with August talking to Jan Olaf, and August has been practicing his speech, and he actually asks Jan Olaf if they could actually talk about the wording of some of the speech. And he actually calls Wilhelm, and Jan Olaf corrects him, the Crown Prince. And he also reminds August that he's only giving the speech if Wilhelm decides not to. And so they leave it like that. We skip on to the choir practice, and the choir is practicing Simone's song that he had written. And once they finish, Jan Olaf basically tells the choir teacher that they need to go back and sing the classic Hillerska song. This is going to upset, of course, Simone, and he's going to basically say this is because it's his song, and about the issues with the royal family and with Wilhelm. And Jan Olaf basically says that the old song was something everyone could sing along to. It's not anything that would have a big solo like Simone's song does. So Simone gets mad and leaves. So after Simone leaves choir practice, he's actually going to see Felice in the hallway, and they talk for a couple minutes, and she sort of gives him some ideas about what they were thinking, cutting the song, and she's supportive of him, but she understands what happened. We do cut into class with Wilhelm and Simone, and Wilhelm has given him the sandwich that he had fixed, and with that, Simone doesn't want anything to do with it, and he doesn't really talk. Moving on in the episode, we're going to see Wilhelm walking down the hall, and it becomes apparent there's some piano music playing in the background, and he's going to wander into the music room where Simone is playing the piano. And this is going to start a discussion that actually starts out with Simone admitting to Wilhelm that the song is actually about Wilhelm. Now, I'll be honest, I actually thought at the end of the last episode, I thought Wilhelm had gotten that as well, but it looks like that was just him sort of being in the moment from Simone and him kissing and realizing that there was still hope. A lot of what's going to go on in the music room here is Simone throwing a lot of stuff at Wilhelm. He's very angry. His song is not being used. He vents on the royal family, and he's a little aggressive here in what he says to Wilhelm, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in my reactions. But before Simone barges out, Wilhelm admits that it was August who filmed them, and that's going to cause Simone to even be more mad, and he's eventually going to storm out and leave, and that's going to bring us to him being on the bus. He texts his friends that he knows it was August, and we're sort of left with a little collage of scenes with Simone on the bus and Wilhelm in the music room, and they're both upset, they're both frustrated, and it seems immediately afterwards that Wilhelm has to go be fitted for his suit, so he is meeting with the tailor and Jan Olaf, and he has a little bit of a panic attack and tears a button off of his suit. We go back and we get to see Simone meeting with his friends, and they are really urging him to press charges. He has some doubts. He has had time, it looks like, to think about what Wilhelm had told him. And basically what Wilhelm had told him was if he pressed charges, August was going to have the best lawyers, the royal family would be supporting August, and that it would be hard to win the case. And actually, you're going to see a situation here where by the time Simone finishes with his discussion with his friends, he's sort of seeing what Wilhelm was talking about. And so it just sort of gets left up in the air. Of course, Wilhelm is not happy about a lot of things going on, so he goes back to his room and he calls his mom, and they're going to discuss everything that's going on, especially the fact that Jan Olaf had changed the song back. The Queen doesn't really seem to care all that much about that, but Wilhelm is questioning what his role is going to be, and this is when the Queen breaks the news to him that August will give the speech if he doesn't, and that August is going to be in line for the throne after Wilhelm. Of course, Wilhelm does get upset. He thinks it's rewarding August. He's probably very right to think that. The Queen does tell Wilhelm that she wants him on her side. She wants his support. She wants him to be the crown prince. And so with that, the Queen is very hard to read in this series. There's some good things. There's some bad things. We're going to skip to the next scene is going to be Sarah and Felice in their room with a couple other of the girls. And they're actually, it looks like they're making TikTok videos. And the phone's going to ring, and Felice answers it, and it is her mom basically telling her that they have sold Rousseau. She breaks this news to Sarah, and Sarah's very upset. She leaves the room, and heads out to the stable. She takes Rousseau out, sort of like a last goodbye type of deal, or at least to see him. I'm assuming they're going to get him at another time. Then we're back again. It's apparently that evening. That's what they've set it up as. And Wilhelm is talking to the counselor, and they have a very nice talk. And Wilhelm is obviously feeling the pressure. He wants to do the job. He really does. He wants to do it for his mom. He wants to do it for Eric. And sort of what the counselor says is, you've got to do it for yourself. And so that's going to bring us on to the next scene. So after Wilhelm sees the psychiatrist, he's actually going to go for a walk through the halls of the dorm, and he's going to get to one point where he's watching August and some of the other guys playing chess and talking about strategy, and I don't think it's any coincidence that August is mentioning the king in the chess game. So Wilhelm stands and looks at them for a few seconds and ends up, August does respond to him and asks him if he wants something, and Wilhelm says no and turns around and leaves. At this point, you have a situation but Wilhelm actually goes to, I think it is the bodyguard. I know the queen had agreed to take the bodyguard away, but it looks like maybe the bodyguard, Marin, is that her name, was maybe staying on the campus just for backup. And Wilhelm goes and knocks on her door and asks her for a favor. He's going to basically want to go to Simone's. Now we see Sarah. She does come to August. I'm telling you, I don't know how they allow these guys and girls to just roam around these dorms. But anyways, with that, she comes to his dorm. He's not there. She's knocking on the door. He walks up, and eventually she's going to tell him that she's upset because Felice sold Rousseau, and it was to the idiots, as Sarah says, and she's really upset. We flash back to a scene of Wilhelm waiting in his car, waiting for Simone to get home, and we get to see a picture of Simone walking up to his door with his friends, and Wilhelm comes up behind them. Basically, Wilhelm tells Simone that August is his backup plan, and if he goes to the cops, he won't have that backup plan. As long as there's a backup plan, he could possibly give it all up. He could be free. And so he's telling Simone about that. Simone, of course, originally takes it as just Wilhelm trying to cover things up. But then what I think one of the better little one-liners in the show, as Wilhelm gets ready to leave, he tells Simone that he just wanted him to know, and he turns around and leaves. As he's leaving, Simone's one friend, Ayoub, I think his name is on there, I'm not sure what the translation would be, but tells Simone, did he just say he would give up the crown for you? And that, I think, is the turning point here, because Simone, hearing this, you could just see the gears working in his head. He's realizing that Wilhelm really wants to be with him, or maybe things aren't so bad. So we're going to move on back and see the end of August and Sarah. August is actually on his phone outside. He's been out for a run, and he's telling his mom to sell some kind of artwork. He wants to buy Rousseau for Sarah. He doesn't actually tell his mom that, but he does get her to sell some of that artwork. And with that, a very nice little conversation between Sarah and August. And I really hate to say it, but I really do like the two together. I'll talk more about that in the reactions later. But he talks to her, and he doesn't tell her exactly what he's doing yet, but she tells him that she's just afraid that she's going to get hurt after he had told her that he was the backup for Wilhelm. And August says, cheesy line, but boy, it was nice, was, I, King August, will protect Queen Sarah. And it was a sweet little moment. And so with that, we're going to move on to class. And this is probably one of the more important and better scenes in the entire season. The book that they had chosen earlier to read and do a report on, we're at the table, we're at school, and basically we have a situation where they are discussing the themes of the book and what was going on and what it meant. And so part of that discussion is going to be Wilhelm and Simone interpreting the book through what their lives are doing. And they're realizing that maybe it's not the other person's fault, and maybe things aren't as they've been thinking it was. You know, I've said before in these reviews that one of the problems is everybody likes to talk, they don't like to listen. And I think this was one of those times that they started to listen to each other. I'll talk more about that in the reaction. So moving on, it is after school and Simone is home, and he's actually going to admit to his mother that he knows that August was the one who posted it on the internet, and he's going to tell her that he's going to go to the police. Now, of course, Sarah's at the dinner table and she hears this, and she's going to rush off and tell August that Simone knows that it was him that posted the video and that Simone is going to go to the police and August should go talk to them first. And she's telling August that he should go have a preemptive strike. He should be the one that goes and tells the police so that they hear his story first. Back to the school, and we get Wilhelm and Simone, and Sarah's just sort of in the middle at this point, but Simone tells Wilhelm that he is going to go to the police, and he just thinks that somebody has to do the right thing. Wilhelm's going to get up and leave. He goes back to his room where he throws up, and he's going to curl himself into a blanket. But while he's curled up in his blanket, he's going to miss their book report. So Simone realizes, hey, Wilhelm's not here. They have lunch and still no Wilhelm. So he goes and knocks on Wilhelm's door. At this point, we get a very good scene between the two. In this scene, Simone is going to come in and he's going to tell Wilhelm that he is not doing this to hurt him. And Wilhelm tells him that he knows, but that he is scared. Simone admits that he's scared too. And Wilhelm asks what will happen to them. Then he reaches across and touches Simone's hand, and they take hands. We get a situation here where they're going to come in and they're going to hug. And then, of course, what probably everyone has been waiting for is they do a hookup. Now, the big thing on the hookup scene, and you knew it was coming, is the curtains are open and they're sitting on the bed and they're making out, and Wilhelm sort of scoots Simone over and goes over and closes the curtains, putting them in the dark, and the scene ends. Now that we've recapped the episode, I want to go back and just give you some thoughts and reactions to what happened. This might be a little longer than some of the others because I do have a few things I want to point out and talk about. And I just want to talk first about how well I think they've done at giving us sort of this brother-sister relationship between Sarah and Simone. I think it's been so well done. That was really shown in the first scenes where Sarah and Simone were talking to each other. Of course, Simone had basically thrown his heart out there and told Sarah about having kissed Wilhelm and that he wanted to do it and that he felt like crap because of it. And you can see he's really feeling guilty for hurting Marcus. But while he's doing that, Sarah is sitting there and thinking about herself and August, and she is the one that responds basically about sometimes you can't control who you love, which is totally true, and sometimes you fall in love with people who aren't the good guy, or, you make mistakes and things like that. And, of course, Simone thinks she is talking just about his relationship with Wilhelm and Marcus, but, of course, she has her relationship going with August, and she knows that people are not going to like that relationship, especially Simone. But I really think they've done a very good job of showing that brother-sister close relationship. The second thing, and this isn't very long, but I sort of like how they set up the bad guy in this season, they sort of changed it from being August. I mean, he's still the bad guy, but they sort of got us looking at Jan Olaf. I mean, they've really sort of set him up as the bad guy because there are just lots of things that he's associated with that happens that's bad, sort of like when he was the one that was coming to fetch Wilhelm back to the palace after he had gone off on the royal council. And of course, that ended up with Wilhelm breaking that snow globe that Eric had given him. You know, that was meant to make Jan Olaf look like the bad guy. You know, the other big thing that he really did was changing the song and not allowing them to use Simone's song. Another little tricky thing I really like that they've done, and I'm just going to point out a couple items here, but the parallels they've done with season 1, I think I really like those. In this episode, we got to see Wilhelm fixing breakfast for Simone like he did in episode 5 last year. You also saw the music room scene where he's finally going to come clean with Simone about knowing August was the one that leaked the video. That's where they met episode 2 in the first season, and where Wilhelm was showing Simone the keys on the piano, and that chord that they came up with that he was using is actually the base of Simone's song. And of course, this is actually in the music room where Simone tells Wilhelm, hey, dummy, the song was for you. Because at that point, he had sort of started to give up. If you remember back, there was a scene where he was going out and he was looking at the soccer field. I think that was supposed to bring back memories of when he was on that one soccer field that night. That's when he called Simone to come and get him. And even with the end scene closing the curtain, I mean, we all knew there was going to be a hookup scene here. And one of the things they were going to do is close that curtain this time. And of course they did. One other thing is this relationship between Sarah and August. And I'll tell you, like everybody, I really hated August after season 1. I mean, he was such a big villain, but they really softened him up. I think the actor playing August did such a good job of sort of softening that role. They did that, putting him with Sarah. You know, the first season, it was sort of like he was manipulating her. But then she sort of did the manipulating at the end of the season. But once they got together this season, they seemed to have a very loving type relationship. And there were just some things that were very sweet that he did that you're like, no, don't do that. You're the bad guy. You can't do that. That goes back to my whole idea of when you have a villain, if you can make that villain be sympathetic, it usually makes the story much better. And I think they've done a good job of developing that and realizing that you might not be popular, you might do bad things, but you may also have a good side as well. Now, the big thing I want to discuss is sort of this dynamic change between Wilhelm and Simone and sort of what went on here. When we got to the place where Wilhelm admitted that he knew August was the culprit, and he is very honest with Simone at that point. Simone really sort of beats him back. You know, this relationship between them, it sort of gives me chills every now and then because, you know, we think about, everybody loves Simone. I love Simone's character. I love Wilhelm's character. But if you think about the whole series, and especially this season, everything that's been said that has been like nasty and just mean has almost all come from Simone. He's sort of been like the aggressor in just being mean back to Wilhelm. And all Wilhelm is trying to do is fix things and get this love back. And he's not being aggressive or mean to Simone. And, you know, that it sort of surprises me that I'm able to look at that now and think, you know, Simone's not the innocent little thing that he sort of wants people to think he is. And he's a little bit mean to Wilhelm. And it would worry me a little bit. And so he finally makes the decision. He wants to be with Simone. And along with that, we're going to get the scene where he's going to go to Simone's house. And I mentioned this during the recap as well. We get, I think, the first time the two actually talk and listen to each other and consider the other's point of view. It's also a situation, it's all done in front of Simone's friends, and they have a positive reaction towards the conversation after having been pretty mad at Wilhelm the rest of the season. And so, again, I've said multiple times, this is a great example. Everybody always says, talk out your problems. Go talk to someone. And the issue with these two has been they talk to each other, but they don't listen to each other and get what is being said because they're both sort of stuck in their own little worlds, and it's hard for them to break through and understand what's going on. And that's helped even more by the discussion of the book in class. And of course, I loved when Simone's friend sort of pointed out, hey, he's just said he would give up the throne for you. And sort of the look on Simone's face at that point. From then on, you could sort of tell Simone realized, hey, this is who I want to be with. Now, I don't have a lot to say about it, but we all knew there was going to be a hookup scene at some point. We all knew there was going to be a situation where they were going to realize the curtains were open and they were going to close them. This was 100% going to happen. The only things that are going to happen more is death and taxes. And so it did. I'll be honest, I was expecting a little more from that hookup scene. The first season, they gave a lot, and I was sort of expecting them to maybe throw in a little more. They actually showed some nudity in the series this time. I was just a little surprised. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to grade this episode, and I'm going to give it an A+. Not quite as good as the last episode, in my opinion, but they are very close. If an A+ is a 97 to 100 on a scale, last week was a 99 and this was a 98. That's how close they are. And so I really like this episode. It did a lot of good things, I thought. And of course, at this point in the story, we know they're going to be back together. And I think that's what everybody wanted. Please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and comment below. And I'll see you next time on the Fandom Realm.